Well, hello, it is time for another Sunday build. This is going to be a long one, so let's just jump right into it. So to start out, actually my mother found a bunch of 3/4 inch square tubing under her mother's trailer, and she decided to give it to me to build something with. So we started out by making a basic frame for the bottom of the trailer. We have 2 cross bars, or whatever you want to call them. Now, to weld the corners together, I cut 2 sides off of the end pieces and put them like so. And on the crossbars, I cut 3 sides off so they would sit on top. Now we get to welding. Once again, I still need practice at welding, at this time anyway. And so I did these complicated joints just so I would get the practice in and get, the technique down. Next up, I had a bunch of bed frames that somebody dumped somewhere, and I took them. So those were used for basically, I guess, the corners. So bed frames are actually quite difficult to weld to these, because these 3/4 inch square tubes are mild steel, whereas bed frames are typically like wrought iron. And so you really have to take your time and melt them together thoroughly. So for the floor, I used some chipboard or cheap plywood or OBS or OSB or whatever you want to call it. That was 1/2 inch thick, I believe. And like that, the floor fits like a dream. Next up, I decided to make some axles. So Harbor Freight wheels you can get for $7. They require a 5/8 of an inch bolt, which just happened to fit in this 3/4 inch tubing perfectly. So I welded them together, welded that to our frame, with some support, of course. Let's test fit the wheels. And it rolls like a dream. So now I need something that's going to actually reach to my quad for me to hitch it to. I'm also adding some reinforcements like you would typically see in a trailer, just because I don't trust a single piece of 3/4 inch square tubing to support all the weight that this trailer might see, because my plan is to sell it once I'm done. Alright, now that that's all done, I took the wheels off and it is time to paint this bad boy. I used a basic gloss black Rust-Oleum or Krylon, I forget which, and I did about 3 to 4 coats. Alright, now let's put our wheels on there, and then I used a little bit of blue thread locker here to keep the lugs on because I do not trust them. And I regretted it later because I had to work around them when I could have just taken them off, but I was out of thread locker and that just wouldn't work. Next, I decided to make a top rail thing, I guess, out of more bed frames that I had laying around. I set the 4 pieces in here with magnets holding them together. I tack welded it while it was on the wood. It was tricky, but nothing caught fire, so that was good. And once they were tack welded together, I did all of the actual welding with it on the ground. And then we took off a majority of the welds on the top just so that it would be smooth. I rounded off the corners as well. And of course we need to paint the top also. I got some Heim joints cheaply from eBay or Amazon, I forget which. They are 5/16 of an inch, so they will fit a 5/16 of an inch bolt. And I just welded that to the top after I ground it kind of flat. It's not the best weld, but you know what? It held up a lot of weight. And I also decided that the side walls could use some reinforcement because I didn't like how floppy they were. So it's time to get welding on some of that, and then I'll paint them a little bit later. Alright, it is time to take it out for a test ride. Except, no it isn't, because I didn't build a hitch on the quad for this. So, I guess we have to do that. This is what we're going to use as a hitch. It's a 5/16 bolt with a little piece ground out for a hitch clip pin. I welded it onto the frame of the quad with a little tiny piece of 3/4 inch tubing that I cut off for the center bars. I actually decided at this point, you know what? This quad's ugly, so I took off the fairings, or the plastics, or the body, or whatever you want to call it. And I picked up some army green-ish looking spray paint, which, by the way, was near impossible to get. I did end up with about 3 to 4 coats on the quad body as well. And then I made a spare tire rack, and that was super simple. All I did was weld 2 pieces of angle steel together. I welded that to the front rack. I used a piece of square tubing that I had laying around and extended it far enough to where the wheel wouldn't hit the rack. Then I welded another piece of angle steel to that, and I welded some bolts to that. And then you can put the tire on there and put some lug nuts on it. They come off with the same size nut that the actual wheel lug nuts do. And the plan was to make like an emergency lug wrench for whenever you were out there if you had to use the spare tire. But that never materialized because I sold this ATV shortly after this was done. Also added an off-road light, which comes on with the brights of the quad. So lows work normally and the brights turn on this big, huge, awesome off-road light. Well, that is about it for this build. I actually enjoyed that, I really did. I enjoy using my head and designing stuff, and I really enjoy building stuff too. In fact, I think I enjoy building stuff more than I enjoy using it. So, let's plan to do more of this kind of stuff. I do need to get some stuff done on another quad first, so maybe what we'll do is I'll show you guys how to reupholster a quad seat, or ATV seat, and that, by the way, is using raw fabric, not some pre-done cover. So stay tuned for that. I also built a pecan sorting table for my mother, so expect that to be coming soon as well. Anyway, that's about all I have for you. So, as usual, you be good while I am gone, and have a lovely week. I'll see you next time.